So here we have my finished traced image of Detective Duck, and you'll see some of these lines I've used some of the line styles to make them a bit thicker, just to give him a sort of three-dimensional look. So if I get rid of the image that I've been tracing so you can see him properly, there he is there, and I'll zoom out a bit, zoom out and center him so you can see him. So that's my Detective Duck character, and I'll show you how I've drawn him in sections. So you can see with the selection tool I've selected the head, and if I now move that, see his head is a completely separate part. He's got his neck and body in there. You see, as we did before, the arm is completely separate on that side. This arm here is also a completely separate group. If I select his coat, move that, you'll see that's completely separate. And down here, midsection, that's a separate part. And then each leg is also a separate part. And this part here is the back of his coat. So if I undo all that, you'll see, if I put this back, that's the back of his coat in there. So the first action that you want to make for your character is what I call a breathing action. And a breathing action is basically what your character is doing when they're standing still. And by adding a breathing action, you'll make your character seem more realistic and more alive. Because if I had just this image here on its own as my standing still character, people would become aware very quickly that this character was standing so still that he was practically a statue. So we want to give him some life by making him breathe, and it's a very simple thing to do. And really all you do is add one keyframe. So to do that, I add a keyframe by clicking this button here. I want to add a copy of the current frame. So you see, by doing that, my slider across the bottom here now has two positions. And you'll see over here that when I slide that, it'll swap between keyframe 1 and keyframe 2. We want to be on keyframe 2. And to make Detective Duck breathe, all I need to do is select all of his top half body sections. So I'll do that by multi-selecting them. So I'll select that arm and then hold down the Shift key, select his other arm, then I'll select his coat, and then I'll select his head. So I've got all those points, or all those items selected. Now to move them, I'm going to move them straight up, but I'm only going to move them slightly because we want him to stand still and breathe, but we don't want him to sort of look like he's really puffed or out of breath. So to move all these, I can just use the arrow keys, and I'm going to use the up arrow key and move all of these points up about 3 pixels. So I'll press 1, 2, 3, and you'll see they all move very slightly. So if I now deselect that and go to frame 1, see how he's now going up and down between the 2 frames. Now what I need to do is add one more keyframe, but this keyframe will be for when he breathes in again and gets him back to this position. So to do that, we go to keyframe 1 and add another keyframe, but this time we just add a copy of the current frame to the end of the animation. So we select add copy of frame to end. Now we're on keyframe 3, which is identical to keyframe 1. So now that we have our keyframes, in order to make this animation look smooth, we're going to have to add in tweens. So just to demonstrate the difference, we'll go back to the main movie and we'll preview this animation with just the keyframes. So to preview it, we click on this button here and do play in web browser. You'll see Detective Duck now looks like he's practically vibrating because there's only 3 frames in his animation at the moment. So we want to slow that right down so that he looks like he's breathing and not having some kind of fit. So we'll go back inside his movie. What we want to do is between each frame we want to place some tweens. And what tweens are extra frames that the computer will calculate to get this character from this position to that position. So we'll add in additional frames to make the transition from there to there much smoother. So to do that, we click the frame duration button for the tweens, and I'm going to add in 12 tweens. So we select 12 and go OK. You see now it says there are 12 tweens. I need to do that on the next frame as well, because all we've got so far is 12 frames going into him taking a breath. Now we need 12 frames for him coming out of that breath. So see at the moment keyframe 2 has got 0 tweens. Need to change that to 12 as well. And go OK. Then on the final frame, we don't need to add any tweens on this frame because when the movie loops back around, it goes from this frame to the first frame. They're exactly the same, so there's no point in putting tweens in between them. So now that we've done that, we'll go back to our main movie and preview it. Into the preview window to play in web browser. Now as you can see, with those tweens he's moving much slower and looks more like he's breathing. So that's your first position or character movement animated, and that's the first one you should pretty much do for any living character. So the last thing we should do before we export this action into GoAnimate is to center the prop. Remember, we made that reminder for you in the template, so here we go. It just doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be roughly in the middle of the character. Now that character action is all ready to import into GoAnimate. We would just go into the File menu, export, publish the movie, and export it as a Flash movie. Which I've already named it, so I'll save that. And that's our first character action done. You'd simply just import that into GoAnimate and then get started on your next action, which we shall do in another tutorial. So until then, see you later.